Okay, let's see. Alexa, volume down. Alexa, volume down. She doesn't listen to me. I'm getting my apron. I know I've been doing a lot of cooking this week, but I'm trying to get prepped for my second vaccine. And I have someone coming over tomorrow to help take care of me just in case I have any bad side effects. So I'm going to make something that I hope she enjoys, that she can have if I do have any side effects. And if not, she can take it home. I'm going to make my vegetable galette, which is just a rough pie. So first thing this morning, I'm going to roast my tomatoes, my asparagus, and my onions all in a pan, and I'm going to make my pie dough. So I have these beautiful asparagus that I picked up at the farmer's market. How you can tell where you need to cut them: bend your asparagus. Ooh, this one is not bending well. There it goes. Snaps. Tells you exactly where it needs to be cut. You can do that with all of them, or you can say that these were all purchased in a bunch. They're probably going to be at the same level. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the ends. I'm going to line up all my asparagus. Typically, when asparagus is in really good season, I will save the ends because I'll make asparagus soup. I can use them to season a vegetable broth. I don't foresee that in my near future, though, because I typically like that soup at the end of the season, and I don't have a lot of freezer space right now because I've been stocking up on a lot of great quality meats and things and vegetables that I've been freezing and prep for the new harvest. So I've got my asparagus on the pan. I'm going to move my pan over here. The only thing that's going to go on these roasted vegetables is some olive oil and a little bit of Parmesan cheese. These are some of the onions that I had left over from the week. I'm going to go ahead and put them up. I did pull out another onion. Onions wilt down a lot, so you're not going to get a lot of body out of them. You're going to get great flavor. So I'm going to go ahead and cut up this remaining piece that I have and add it to my roasting pan. Okay. Thickness of the slice is personal preference. If you don't like onion, you don't have to use it. If you plan on replacing onion with shallots, I recommend you don't roast the shallots because they will roast a lot quicker than the other vegetables in the pan, and you'll end up with a really burnt mess because shallots are very high in sugar, a lot higher than white or yellow onions. My preferred onion for this is either a Walla or a Vidalia. This morning I have Vidalia, and I think I'm going to have enough onion just with that half that I had for this one galette, so I won't need this one. Oops, a little skin. I've got these beautiful Roma tomatoes that I picked up at the farmer's market locally. One thing I will say is that they roast very wet, so I don't have a grapefruit spoon. I wish I had a grapefruit spoon. I need to go online and find one of those. Grapefruit spoons have rough little edges. Since these are going to roast up really fast and they put off a lot of moisture, I'm going to go ahead and clean the seeds out because I don't need all that extra moisture going in my roasting pan or in my galette. So I'm just going to cut those in half. I'm not bothering to cut the end off. The end is fine. It'll roast up. It'll get tender. It'll have good flavor. It's not going to affect the quality of the tomatoes. I'm going to leave these halves whole. I'm not going to dice them up when they are roasting. I'm actually going to use them in the dish whole just like they are. It'll make for a prettier galette. This is a vegan recipe. Of course, you could change that up by adding some cheeses to it if you eat cheese. You could add, I would recommend feta at the end. Right after you pull it out of the oven before serving, crinkle up some feta. It's a dry, really moist feta, because again, you're going to add any more moisture to this tart than it's already going to come out of the roasted vegetables. And that's why I'm pre-roasting the vegetables. I don't want to add any more fluid than absolutely necessary. Okay, and I have my lapel mic on this morning, so I feel like I'm yelling. Again, I talk loud, so I have to learn to talk lower if I want to continue doing this. I'm going to use all of these tomatoes in the recipe. If they don't fit in the tart, that's fine. I will eat them on the side because they're really, really good. When you roast up Roma tomatoes like this with olive oil, a little bit of garlic, and some Parmesan cheese. It can make a really quick marinara this way. If you just roasted all these vegetables together and put them in a food processor or a high-powered blender that'll smash them up. If you do that and it's hot, you need to make sure you leave a hole in the opening of the blender. If you're using a food processor, it shouldn't be a problem. Okay, 2 more. But again, this makes really, really good fresh marinara if you just roasted these vegetables like this and then blended them. So you can imagine the galette, what it's going to taste like. It's going to be a pie filled with fresh asparagus and onions and garlic and Parmesan cheese. I'm not going to use Parmesan cheese this morning because I want to keep this vegan. If I had, oops, I lost a tomato. If I had some vegan Parmesan, I would add it right now to the roasted vegetables. All right, so let's put that to the side. Let me move this tomato mess out of here and rinse my hands real quick. Oh, I'm not going to rinse my hands because I'm going to get them really messy right now. Move my knife, my spoon, get the knife off the deck. I don't think I need it anymore right now. Put it in the sink. I'm going to wipe down my cutting board because tomato juice everywhere. All right. All right. Paper towel. I've got my oven heating to 350. I'm slow roasting these normally. I could do a 400-degree oven and roast them faster, but I see no need to rush it. So, got all these beautiful vegetables. I'm going to add some pepper. Not adding any salt. You know how I feel about salt. I was actually going to do a demo for a friend of mine to show. I went to Chick-fil-A yesterday and I got a scrambled egg bowl because I was hungry on the way from dropping Dixie at school and I knew I had meetings. So I picked up the bowl and I ordered salt with it. And they give you this little bitty package, which is the equivalent of 1 teaspoon of salt for your breakfast, right? I want people to think about how many of those little packets they consume in a day. There is no FDA requirement for salt, just like sugar. There is a requirement that you don't consume too much. So, garlic. And I'm just doing on top of the asparagus. I'm going to add the olive oil. And I'm going to dribble a little into each tomato piece. Halfway through the cooking of these tomatoes, I'm going to turn them over so that the skins will roast as well because we're using all of the tomato, including the skin. So each little piece of garlic, each little piece of tomato has garlic in it. And 1 more little spoonful. 2 little pieces here. It just adds a lot of flavor. Put that in the sink. Wipe my hands because I'm not a big garlic fan. Well, I love garlic. Garlic doesn't love me. So I'm very cautious in how I eat it. Again, I'm trying to make the decision on if this stays strictly vegan or if I go with the parm. I've got the parm out. I'm just trying to make up my mind. I'm going to sprinkle olive oil all over the top of this. Make little wells in the tomatoes. You'll be amazed at how well these roast up and what the flavor that comes out of them is. This bottle is almost empty. Woo! All right, we're gonna get all the olive oil out of it. And again, I use the California Ranch California Ranch. Best olive oil you're going to buy in the States. That is made in the States. So that's going to go in the recycle bin. Let me toss up the onions a little bit with the oil and a little bit of garlic and the pepper on them. Keep them over there on their side. I'm going to toss the asparagus. I'm not laying it flat. I'm just roasting it in a big, large pile. It's going to give me all different degrees of doneness, which is okay going into the galette. What we're trying to do right now, let me wash my hands, is build flavor into the vegetables. So having different levels of caramelization is going to be good. These are ready to go in the 350 degree oven. I'm going to say for an hour. I'm going to check them in half an hour to 40 minutes. Flip the tomatoes if they need to be flipped. And then I'm going to come back while they're roasting, and I'm going to do the pie dough. So you can see how that pie dough is made. Let me stick these in the oven. All right, they're roasting. All right. Let's go ahead and thinking about it. Let's get the pie dough done because it's got to rest for about 20 minutes. I did not put the Parmesan cheese. I might do that after it's done. I've got my food processor out. I haven't used this in forever. I've got the mixing blade, which is the metal blade. Does not want to come out, which is the metal S-shaped blade. All right. And I've got my recipe right here because I haven't made this in forever, so I want to make sure I'm doing it right. So I've got vegan butter and Crisco butter flavored shortening in the refrigerator, staying cold. I'm going to need a teaspoon of sugar and a quarter teaspoon of salt. Oops. So let's go ahead. Pie dough does require salt. I'm going to go ahead and use this one. Just trying to see. I thought I had some sugar from my last tea that I had. It's already out. I do. So I had tea. I had a friend over for tea, so I used my tea set. So my sugar, my salt, I've got my flour. I'm going to need 3 to 4 tablespoons of ice cold water. I'm going to pull that out when I'm ready to do it. All right, so sugar, salt, and I'm sorry, I'm one of those terrible people that doesn't necessarily measure perfectly. After 40 years of cooking, this is a half cup measure, and so I need 3 of these because I'm using a cup and a half, and I'm just putting it right into the food processor. All right, so that's my cup and a half of all-purpose flour. And when you're cooking vegan, you have to check your flour, make sure it's made at the right mill, because sometimes, I'm not sure, I can't remember which manufacturers do it, but some of the manufacturers use bone to crush flour. Not a good thing. So I've got a 1 teaspoon of sugar. So 1 teaspoon of sugar. Salt, I'm just going to eyeball and put it in, because you know me, I don't like salt anyway. So I'm putting it right where I can see it. And I'm going to say that's a 1/4 teaspoon. All right. So here comes the fun part. I need the cold water, the cold butter, and the cold shortening. And again, everything is in my fridge, staying cold until I use it. That's why I was making this last. Butter, shortening. Again, I'm using the Earth Balance butter, which is the vegan butter substitute. I need a 1/4 cup, which is 4 tablespoons. This is 2 tablespoons that I had left. All right, so I'm going to dump that in. And I just need 2 more tablespoons. So they do give you the markings on the package, so you can easily see where a tablespoon is. It's funny, I was watching a show the other day, a cooking show, and they were talking about how the paring knife is the cook's favorite tool, and it is. You know, I can bone a chicken with a paring knife. I can bone a fish with a paring knife. I can do just about everything with a paring knife. And that comes from a lot of practice. So there's our other butter. And that's the butter substitute. That's the Earth Balance Vegan Buttery Sticks is what it's called. And then I need a 1/4 cup or 4 tablespoons of vegetable shortening. I guess they're using the shortening with the butter because they're not getting the fat out of the butter, the animal fat. And you do need that when you're making pie dough. So it says I need 4 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to cut through, put this back in the fridge. And with making this pie dough, well, any pie dough, mostly. There's a couple that you don't require really cold ingredients. But this pie dough specifically requires everything to be ice cold. I'm going to cut this into 4 cubes. It's very soft even though it's been in the fridge, so I got to make sure I'm using it quickly. Let me put this back in because these do get warm really fast without the animal fat in it. And then I need ice cold water. So my handy dandy ice machine, I'm going to get a couple cubes. And then I'm going to fill it with filtered water. Oops. Make sure I have the ice cold water. That's the best way to make sure you have the ice cold water, and then you'll just use a measuring spoon, which I will grab. All right. Oops, wait a minute. I've got my easy, handy dandy. I have probably 4 sets of measuring spoons. I'm crazy when it comes to buying cooking supplies, and I'm gifted cooking supplies. So we're going to close that up. Oops. We're going to take that out. We're going to pulse this real fast. Just a couple pulses. I want to see that the flour and the sugar and the vegan butter is coming to a nice like pea-sized consistency or breadcrumb consistency. Now I'm going to add the ice cold water. So 3 to 4. Do it. I'm going to put the first 2 in because I know that's safe. When they say 3 to 4, 3 might be perfect, 4 might be going overboard. All right, so we're going to go for 3. So everything with making pie dough depends on, that's 3, depends on the flour consistency. Sorry. The humidity in your kitchen, that's 3, so we're going to go 4. I'm going to say 1 more. I'm going to go 5. And again, it's a very humid day, so the flour is soaking up a little bit more water than normal. Yeah. That looks, you know what? I'm going to test it real quick with my fingers because I'm thinking it needs 1 more. Nope, that's perfect. Okay, so let me take this out. So it did soak up 4 tablespoons of ice cold water. And again, pie dough, depending on the consistency or the flour, everything is different every time you make it. It's never exactly the same with the amount of water. It might be the same with the other ingredients, but that's why they say 3 to 4 tablespoons. It depends on the flour you use. It depends on the humidity in your kitchen. I'm going to move everything out of the way, including my handy dandy cutting board, because what I'm going to do now is wipe this real quick. I'm going to throw just a little bit of flour down. I don't want to, on the deck, I don't want to add too much more flour to this. I think it's at the right consistency. I can spread that out a little bit. I'm going to take this off. I'm going to drop my dough down. You can see it's really, really crumbly. It doesn't look like it's going to stick together. You're going to be surprised. Put this back here. It's so sad. My food processor, pretty much the only time it gets worked is making pie dough. Occasionally, if I'm making a quick cookie dough, I might pull it out. So I'm just going to make sure this is all bound together. Again, I don't want to drag too much flour into it because we got it at the right moisture consistency. So this is going to make a one crust pie. It's going to make a galette. It's not in the shape of a pie. It's a very rough, rustic. You can make it any shape you want. You're going to fold the edges over some of the fillings and then just bake it like a pie. But it is not a pie per se. It's not getting in a fancy dish. It's not going to have a fancy top. It is just strictly to be a rough, rustic, almost a farmhouse pie. I made this a lot when I lived in Utah and when I was married. This was one of the dishes. I didn't use the vegan crust. I used a regular pie crust. But it was one of the dishes that I would make that one of my neighbors adored. He was a police officer in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and he adored. So, but I didn't make it with vegan. So this is a vegan pie crust. Everything in here is animal-free, cruelty-free, animal-free. I'm making a disc with my dough. Now, just like any other pie dough, it's warm now because I've been working it with my hands. So let me get my cling wrap. I didn't pull a sheet out. I wasn't thinking right this morning. I got a team in Red Review on a big document, so I'm going to let them continue working. I'm now going to wrap this, and ideally is 30 minutes minimum in the fridge to let all the ingredients chill back together. I'm going to leave it probably till later this afternoon. I'll come back later this afternoon once the vegetables are roasted and cool. I don't want to put the hot vegetables on cold pie dough, and it does cook from raw, so I'm going to stick this in the fridge and let it chill. The vegetables are roasting. I will probably come back probably after lunch because the vegetables will have been roasted and cooled. I want them cool before I put it on the dough, and then I'll bake the pie off. I will eat some tonight for dinner, and then I will have some for Lisa when she gets here tomorrow to take care of me after my second vaccine. So, throw this in the sink. That's it, y'all. I will talk to you later this afternoon. Okay? Thanks. Bye.